Show, where we spotlight everyday entrepreneurs and hands-on innovator building real impact. Today we are joined by Chad Link, a visionary tech entrepreneur and co-founder of Swyvl, a real estate platform that is turning the industry upside down by giving money back to the buyer, seller, and agent. His mission is to make real estate more transparent, affordable, and fair. Chad, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, what was it like growing up for the both of you?
For me, my dad was in the military, so we were an Air Force family. So for, the majority of my childhood, we were either in Washington State here, or we were in Minot, North Dakota. We were stationed at Minot Air Force Base with it on that side. So we were first through sixth grade. Was, like I said, my dad was in the military, but he retired when at the end of my sixth grade year. So we moved back to Washington, and after that, we lived here in the Seattle, Washington area. I finished up high school, then went to college at the University of Washington, got my degree in Law, Society, and Justice there, and then kind of everything went on. I was a police officer for about 10 years in law enforcement and specialized law enforcement. And then when I left there, I decided to enter real estate and started a real estate brokerage. So that's kind of my quick and short history.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So fascinating. It just shows that there's a whole lot of discipline that you actually went through before you actually dive into real estate. And that was a lot. So, Rob, what was it like for you?
Well, I'm very similar to Chad. We're similar ages too, and so my dad was also in
just saying I'm younger,
not a little bit. So I was actually born in Spain, and then moved to Korea, where my mom is from. And I was in Korea until I graduated second grade of primary school. Moved to Tacoma, Washington. I've pretty much been in Tacoma ever since until I moved to. I was in Alaska for a little bit, but moved back to Washington and got married, settled down, started a family. And so I've been basically running businesses, and I'm also the lead pastor of a small church here in the Olympia, Washington area. So
wow, amazing.
That's what
amazing. It's really, really amazing hearing the both of your stories. They just speak volumes. Yeah, entrepreneurship sometimes is not just something that, sometimes I find it that over time, sometimes there's a link to your childhood, being that the curiosity, the family trait, and a whole lot of stuff really spoil entrepreneurship. So hearing the story just speak volumes to that. So can you remember a moment earlier in your life when you realized that you actually want to challenge the traditional system? Because being that I'm reading the intro, I'm reading all the bios, I'm like, wow, why did you actually we try to challenge the traditional system of real estate, where a whole lot of things are just be done secretively without putting the buyer into mind, the agent, and everything. So how did you actually get started?
So for me, how I started, and I had some investment properties that I had, and then it was kind of just a natural segue into real estate itself. However, especially here, real estate has for agents, and what most people don't know is that 87% of all real estate agents are out of the business in less than 5 years. So it's a very top heavy, where the majority of the work is being done by a very small percentage of successful real estate agents. Fortunately, when I entered into this business, I had no idea about any of that. I had no idea what the actual percentages were. And I actually entered just before the Great Recession hit, back around that 2007 time period. So I kind of picked a horrible time to start in the business. But of course, through my ignorance, I had no idea with all of that. But what it did do is it really forced me to really grind. So while I was coming into the business, the Great Recession hit, and a lot of agents were exiting the business. So you already had the natural exodus that occurs over a 5-year time period, and then you add in the worst real estate market since the Great Depression happened, where you're seeing you're seeing valuations of homes dropping 40-50% over this year or two. We're having banks that they're thinking are going to fail. A lot of them did. Ones like WAMU, etc., all failed. However, and then other banks that they were concerned about, like Bank of America and Chase, etc., they were all concerned over that time period that all of these things were going to fail. So I entered during this really, really turbulent time period. But luckily, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I really think it was a blessing because I was willing couldn't do anything. I was just like, and for about 6 months, I had nothing, like nothing. I had nothing coming in, like $0, nothing closing, etc. And I thought to myself during that time period, I'm like, okay, who has all the listings and who can afford to and is dropping the price of those listings in order to try to catch up with the market? The problem is like you would list a house at a certain price and the market was dropping so quick that you couldn't get on top of it. You start doing these price reductions, but the price, it was just dropping so fast in front of you that you couldn't get there. And of course, most sellers, they could only drop it so much. So I said, okay, who has all these homes and who has the ability to be able to sell them for a loss if necessary? And it was banks. It was the financial institutions. The thing is with the financial institutions, they had never been faced with the this conundrum of having to sell this many foreclosed homes at one time. So their internal structures that they had placed in order to handle were overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed in a very quick manner. So fortunately, I called financial institutions and banks over and over and over again. And over a 6-month time period, all I heard was kind of no, because they were trying to figure out what they had going on. They were trying to catch up to everything. And then I finally heard a yes after 6 months of calling. I called the same phone number I had called for months, and there was actually a different girl who was working at that desk. And so I called her up, I talked with her, and she's like, what area do you cover? And I'm like, hey, I cover the Seattle, Washington area. She's like, hey, I got like 6 properties that need to be taken care of there. Can you handle it? Do you know what you're doing? And then I lied off my ass and said, yep, I do know what I'm doing. Was actually doing. And from there on, I went from, closing nothing, having no business whatsoever, to really the next kind of 3+ years, I was closing anywhere between 20 to 30 plus properties every month. I mean, it literally went from 0 to, and then there was all those challenges, right? Because all of a sudden I didn't have the infrastructure. I didn't have the key boxes. I didn't have the signage. I didn't have the posts. I didn't have the time. I had all these things I had to figure out as a result of it. But it was one of those things where if I had known how difficult this all was, I probably it all. I wouldn't have known that me calling, blind phone numbers at banks, that's not supposed to work. That's not the way you do it. But I didn't know that, so I just kept on pushing forward. And then from there on, there's just kind of story after story of where I became a HUD local listing broker. And I had been calling that company for about 2+ years, and they kept on telling me, no, we have our people. And then one day I called and the girl on the phone was crying. And I was like, well, why are you crying? Why are you upset with all this? And she's like, oh, we lost the government contract. We no longer have it. And of course, me and my greedy ways, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. By the way, who did get it? So she told me what company had gotten it, and it was a company down in California. And I get off the phone with her, and I call them right up, and they're like, yeah, we're just getting spun up. We're just ready to go. We're just trying to find all our agents who to work for. And they're like, can you be down here tomorrow morning for an interview? Ooh. And I'm like, so, I ended up having a flight down there the next day to get interviewed. And then I became, a HUD local listing broker, which I am to this day. And it's been something I've done for like 15+ years. So, there's all these kind of stories of where my ignorance helped, but you also have to have that grind and that grit to go forward with it and do things that everyone else is telling you can't do, or you're not supposed to do, or that's not how it's done. You really have to be able to challenge those beliefs. You have to be able to challenge those norms that are sitting out there if you want to change things.
Yeah, I think this is really, really amazing. It just speak volumes to a particular line I learned about before now, that sometimes what actually even see us through in the various trade we go into, sometimes it's not even the education, it's not even the certification, it's not even the level of knowledge, but the grit, the persistence, the willingness to show up when there is nothing, the willingness to endure for long, where everybody is willing to quit. So it's the fact that you're able to kind of stay 6 months without anything. That is crazy, man. That was really a whole lot.
I would much rather have somebody whose back is against the wall and has that drive to succeed at all costs, right? Where their back is against, than somebody with an Ivy League education where they're just trying to work their way up through the ladder. There is something to be said for having no options. In order to be successful, you can't have an out. You can't have a plan B. Even in my business, we run into people who are like, I want to work a second job, or I want to do something else. And I kind of think to myself, I'm like, yeah, most likely I'm going to succeed fully in this business because you have an out. And when you have an out, it is easy to quit. And that is the thing that costs most people.
So true, so true. Rob, what was it like for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I was just noticing that for both Chad and I, we didn't come from a family with a business background. I know a lot of business people get started because my grandpa was a businessman, my dad was a businessman, so I'm a businessman. But I noticed that you and I, we did not go into the military like our dads.
Yeah.
I don't know about for you, but like for me, I think a lot of my entrepreneurial drive came from my uncle on my mom's side, who moved over here to the States from Korea, became a naturalized citizen, worked his butt off, and he started a small business, a small embroidery business. But he was doing janitorial cleaning and he was washing dishes at night to pay all the bills until his business took off. That's, I think, where I got a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit. And so when I decided that I had had enough of corporate America, I dabbled as a software developer, and I worked for a major international corporation as a software developer. And I worked for, a national Bible software development company in the tech space. And so I did corporate America for a while. And I think what I didn't like about corporate America is my success or failure was completely dependent upon somebody else's leadership, right? Because it doesn't matter how good you are at your job at the end of the day, if the corporation is taking a dive, I mean, you go down with the ship or you leave and you go somewhere else. But I remember I don't know who I heard it from, but somebody basically said, listen, if you want to make money in this world, find something that you're good at that people are willing to pay you to do, and just do it well.
Amazing.
I found that I was the guy that everybody went to for tech advice from an early age. I mean, my friends, when I was growing up, not everybody had a computer in the house, but we wound up getting a computer. And believe it or not, I wrote my first computer program in 3rd grade. Okay. I was such a nerd. I got the programming manual for my Commodore 64 that my dad brought home one day. 64. Yeah. And that was the first computer I'd ever seen. I was like, well, what is this? So I read the manual and I wrote some code and it worked. And I was like, this is awesome. I can make this computer do whatever I want. And so I've always been an early adopter of technology because of that. And so I think the way my brain is wired, I think growing up in a multicultural household where I spoke 2 different languages also helped me to understand computer language easily. So I started venturing and looking at other code that I didn't know the language, but I picked it up really easily. And even to this day, even spoken languages, I pick up pretty quickly. And so that was it for me. I mean, I just kind of became the guy that everybody went to for technical expertise. And then that just kind of continued down the road. And as a matter of fact, that's how Chad and I met. He's running his real estate brokerage. I'm running a digital media company. And he came to us basically saying, hey, I need somebody that can build me a new website. And we said, yeah, we can do it. And that's what got us started together.
Wow, this is really amazing, and the fact that you are the more like the tech guy behind the behind the particular stuff you actually more like created, and it just speaks volumes to what can be built when more like a handy person or more like an idea person actually more like working tech into it. It's making the platform that's very lovely. Especially in this age and time where a whole lot of things is around tech and you just have to show up, such kind of collaboration can never be overemphasized, and this is really really amazing. So you have built something that flip real estate model on its head. So what inspired the idea of how did you call the name? Is it Swyvl?
Yeah, for Swyvl.
Yeah, Swyvl. So what actually
Yeah.
inspired the ideas and how did it get started?
So, how things work. Well, number one, I have worked with all of kind of the major real estate platforms and major real estate companies. And we kind of had this shift about 20 years ago where everything kind of got all assimilated, all the information got put in one place. And then we kind of had these major real estate platforms that came out like Redfin, Trulia, Zillow, etc. But we really haven't had anything really new since then. But these platforms, these companies, these big tech companies have really solidified their position in the real estate world. And the thing is, what they do is they provide information about homes. So they provide what we call an IDX feed. And the IDX feed, it has, the vast majority of all the listings that are available in the United States. And this is what it does. For home buyers, it provides them access to this where they can look for homes. And then once they find homes that they may be interested in, or they want more information, or they want to be able to be shown, they're able to then basically click a button and say, hey, I like to have a real estate agent contact me. And I like to have a real estate agent, answer my questions and be able to, possibly show me this home and kind of start start the process. So what they do is they then connect them with a real estate agent, and the real estate agent then helps them with that buying of that home or the selling of a home if they have a home that they want to sell. However, what buyers and sellers don't know is that real estate agent that they're being referred to, when they close on that home, when that home closes from the buyer or the seller's end, that real estate agent is then paying what's called a client referral fee back to Redfin or Realtor or Zillow or one of those platforms. And that client referral fee can be 30, 40, 50% of the total commission that real estate agent's going to earn. So that amount can be $5, $10, $15, $20,000 or more, depending upon the price of the home, that is going back to this third-party platform. But what really kind of grated at me over the years is, number one, the home buyer, home seller that I'm helping, they have no idea about this arrangement. I can't tell them, I'm not allowed to tell them so they have no idea that I'm paying this money back to this platform. Number two, the home buyer and home seller, even though it's their business that's actually being sold, right? That's the commodity. That's what's being sold by these third-party platforms. Even though it's their business that's being sold, the home buyer, home seller doesn't know what's happening, and they don't get to share in any of that money. So, and then I'm like, okay, that doesn't feel right. And then finally, I'm looking at the home buyer and the home seller. I'm saying, hey, this is a very expensive process. By the time you, for example, if you're buying a home, you got your down payment, you got your closing costs, you got your appraisal fees, you got your moving fees, you got your inspection fees. And for a lot of people, the thing that stops them from getting into buying a house is really the overall costs, that entry level cost of having to save all that money. And I'm like, okay, why are these companies making billions of dollars? It's roughly around $10 to $12 billion every year between the major companies that they're making. Why are they making this money and they're doing nothing while the home buyer and home seller, who's actually the one whose business is being sold and really needs that money for this process, why are they not benefiting from it? So I said, hey, there's got to be a way where we can create a marketplace where this billions of dollars that are being charged in client referral fees and marketing fees by these platforms, instead of paying it to them, we can give it back to the real estate agents and the home buyers and home sellers, and they can decide how to use that money moving forward. And it was also a way to take things, for example, in the Seattle area where we live, the average house just hit $1 million. That's really expensive, right? It just hit $1 million. And these costs that these third-party real estate firms are making, like I said, Redfin and Realtor and Zillow and some of the others, these are serving to artificially increase the cost of buying and selling a home. And of course, those costs are being passed on to the home buyer and the home seller. So again, I said, hey, there's got to be a better way in order for us to be able to share this money and distribute it among the actual players, the actual people who do the work, rather than just giving it to this big tech corporation who is then just going to pass it on to their shareholders, et cetera. So that was really the onus to this, where I'm sitting here working with these clients on the ground level and saying, hey, instead of the money going from the top down, it really needs to go from the bottom up. And it was on the consumer level, because I look at it from the consumer level. I don't look at it from a CEO of a tech firm who's never actually sold a home, who's never actually had to work as a real estate agent, who's never actually helped a home buyer or home seller get into their first home, never seen the challenges of what occurs during that process. So I have a much different viewpoint of how this should all work. And after this 20 years of where we've been doing the same thing, it's time for a new process to be. It's really okay. We're like, hey, there's a better way of doing this where someone can find the same home that they would have found on another real estate platform. They can find the same agent that they would have found on another real estate platform. But instead of just getting the home, now they can get the home and they can get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 back at closing in order to be able to help them with the cost of buying or selling that home.
Wow, this is really pretty amazing. Is the fact that why just doing your business, you're not just about closing the deal alone. You had a whole lot of restriction and seeing the back and front, seeing the percentage that is being taken by someone who is just the middleman, who doesn't do pretty, mostly nothing. Just it's the fact that you're a customer is centricity. You're actually more like focused on the customer, and then you see a whole lot of lost that was being kind of burdens on them over time, and the fact that you actually more like sweep in to give a helping hand. And this is really amazing. So, what were the biggest challenge you face in convincing people that your model is giving money back to them?
When we shop the idea around to people, especially home buyers and home sellers, it is a no-brainer. Because when you tell somebody that you've got two choices, number one, you do it the old-fashioned way. You go onto the competitor, you find the house, you click on connect me with an agent, they connect you to the agent, you pay $1 million, you got a house. That's great. You can find the exact same house on our site, but here's the difference. The agents on Swyvl compete and you say, I want to buy this house, they bid against each other for 5 days. It's called a share experience. And they say, I'm willing to give you this percentage of the commission back at the end of the deal. And so that's how at the end of the 5 days, the agent who has agreed to share the largest percentage of their commission, they win the chance to do business with the client. Until then, the agent doesn't know who the client is, and the client doesn't know who the agent is. And so it's done blindly, right? Which is awesome. So we're introducing competition back into the marketplace for one thing. And so you're going to work with an agent who is motivated to earn your business. They bid the highest so that they could work with you. And then when it's all done, like Chad said, you get $10, $15, $20,000 back in your pocket. It's been a no-brainer. One of the biggest challenges that I feel is even real estate agents have been doing things the same way for so long that they're used to it. And it's hard to affect change in something that has become an institution like real estate. And so we get this question all the time when we're explaining it to buyers and sellers. Easy, no brainer. When we explain it to an agent, they go, okay, so then I give you percentage at the end, and we go, no, you referral fee at all. They're like, oh, so do you charge me up front a flat fee? Well, yes, we charge the agents, get this, $199 a month. That's it. Flat rate. They can compete in as many of these share experiences as they want. They can do $20 million of business that month, and we'll get $199. So they really are the ones that went out, and then the buyers and the sellers went out too, because they're getting cash back in their pocket. As a matter of fact, they're going to get more money than us that month. So it's awesome. I love it.
Wow, it's really amazing, and I'm just more like wondering how the idea actually even started from, being that a whole lot of it they still work with the old way of actually more like doing business, and some of those business have been over years and hundreds of years. Nobody's thinking about working on different things, and I think the reason why that is being done is most of them they don't even look at the customer end to see, okay, I care more about this customer. What can I do different to actually make it better for them? What can I do to actually remove the barrier? What can I do to remove some of those back and forth things that is not even being needed? I think just thinking that very way spoil these ideas, and from your stories, it just speak volumes to, yeah, you've seen a whole lot of things, that a loophole where that money just gets into without any clear explanation, no transparency and everything. And the fact that you're able to come out with something better and something actually very great.
It really has to do with your perception. When you think about all these things, how many times have things been changed just by somebody looking at it in a different manner and saying, hey, why are we doing it this way? And how can it be done differently? Like I said, really for us, the power of what we have is that we look at the problem and we look at the solution to those problems from the consumer level. So we're looking at it as the benefit of the home buyer and the home seller and the agent first. We're not looking at it as, hey, how do we get a company spun up and how do we get enough users so then we can turn around and sell it to somebody else for $100 million. We don't look at it in that manner. And the vast majority of companies, especially on the tech side, on the prop tech side, that is the main goal. The main goal is simply to, hey, how do we get enough users to show enough activity on this so that we can turn around and sell it to somebody for a lot more money? We're going to benefit our shareholders. That's all that is. It's just about showing activity. On our side of things, we're saying, hey, how can we really do something that's really important? And we know that, hey, we don't need to make every dollar. We don't need to take every dollar that's possible out of this deal in order to benefit for our company. We know that by benefiting the home buyer and the home seller and the agent, we know that our company is going to do just fine on its own. But it's really about the perception and what our perspective is and what our goal is compared to the other prop tech companies that are out there and have been out there for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, amazing. So Chad, how did you actually more like build trust in respect of the users and that of the agents? Because I know, being that when you actually started out as a new platform, definitely agents is going to definitely struggle with it. That, wow, why should I trust this platform? They are just starting out. They are innovating what the system is. Why should I trust them? Why should I actually more like pay an upfront fees and just? So how were you able to kind of work out this?
It's really twofold. Number one, I would say, hey, look at the leadership team. Number one, the leadership team is not a fly-by-night, and I'll catch a little bit of flack for this, but we're not some college, dropouts who decided, hey, we're going to take this idea and we're just going to run with it. I've been in this business for almost 20 years now. I've been successful in a business where, like we talked about, 87% of the agents are out of the business in 5 years or less. So there's a history behind me of where I've been successful, and I've successfully helped thousands of clients personally buy and sell homes. So that's where our foundation is at. I would say, hey, why would you not trust me while you would trust somebody with a company that has never ever helped anyone, who has never been out there for 6 months, a year, showing homes night in and night out, who's been writing contracts, negotiating the inspection period with you, going through things with like low appraisals, getting things all the way to closing. If you are going to not trust somebody who's actually done that, why would you trust somebody who's running Redfin or Truly or Zillow who's never successfully done that? So that's number one. I would say, hey, we have a history that really says, hey, you can trust us because we've lived it and done it success for 20 plus years. But I would say the next step of saying, hey, how do you trust us and how do you trust this new company is the fact that we're telling you the truth. We're really peeling back the curtains. We're peeling back all the different layers and saying, hey, this is something that you don't know that's going on. So I could line up 100 people and I would tell them, hey, do you know that when you go onto like Redfin and you sit there and you look for homes and then you hit that button that says connect me with a real estate agent, that real estate agent is actually paying 30, 40, 50% or more of their total commission back, and that you're getting none of that? It would blow their minds because they have no idea what's happening. And then if I tell them, hey, listen, not only are we going to tell you this, not only are we going to educate you about this process, but we're also then going to turn around and share it with you so that you benefit with it. Why would you not trust us? Because we're being honest and upfront with you, while these other platforms are not being honest and upfront with you. And then finally, I would say on the agent side of things with it, I would say, hey, again, look at our success record. Look at the record of our leadership team, the record of our management team, where we have been successful in a business that you may want to be successful in, or you may want to gain more success in. Who are you going to trust? There is this story that I tell is I was talking with this VC, this venture capitalist at one point, and we were talking about Redfin, and he was telling me how, much of a visionary, I think it's Glenn Kellerman or whatever, who's head of that. He's like, how much of a visionary Glenn is and just a genius and what he's done. And then I looked at him and I said, he has lost approximately 90% of his stock's value. He has never turned an actual profit in his company, yet you're telling me that he's a genius and that he's a visionary. Not only did this occur, there was things like iBuyer programs, et cetera, that they did where they lost over $1 billion. And I said, hey, if I did that with my own small business, I wouldn't be in business for very long. Yet you are sitting here and telling me that he's a visionary in this phenomenal real estate prop. And I'm like, we really have to change what our perception is and what our expectations of a visionary is, because if that's a visionary, then listen, we're in a lot of trouble. So we really have to, like I said, the goal and morals and the mottos of our company, what we want to do is we really want our company to be serving the greater good, and we want to be able to help people get into homes and be able to sell their homes. We're not here to take advantage of them. And the reality is those companies 110% are taking advantage of home buyers and home sellers and agents.
Wow. Amazing. Thanks for a whole lot for that detail. So Rob, what role does transparency play in how you run now Swyvl and your team?
Yeah. When it comes to transparency, we let everybody know what we're doing right up front. I mean, it's a very simple process if you think about it. And that's one of the things that attracted me to this model is the simplicity. But one of the examples that maybe is unique to us is, for example, we launched our final beta and we had people join, and we didn't really have any buyers and sellers on the platform yet. And we let brokerages know, hey, listen, play around on our site. If you find anything that's not working, you get a hold of us, rather than give them a random email address that's going to some person who's working in tech support and customer service or whatever. We give them my email address. If they send an email to tech@swyvl.com, it's coming to me. But we also let people know, hey, my email address is rob@swyvl.com. When we talk to people, we give it our personal cell phone numbers. And so when anybody has an issue, we say, hey, contact us. And we had an agent that was on the site, and they had a suggestion for the product. They go, hey, I got a suggestion to make the product better. And I emailed them back, said, yeah, what's your suggestion? And she said, It'd be really nice for us to know when a buyer seller fills out this client profile whether this is going to be a cash offer or not, because that's going to change how much percentage I can give back to them. We both looked at each other and we said, hey, that is a great idea. And Chad said, how soon could you implement that? And I said, I could put that in right now. So we added, our tech team got together and we added that. So now when you fill out you're looking to buy a house, you can say this is going to be a cash offer. And then the agents will know because there's a little green dollar sign that appears next to that listing. And they go, oh, this is a cash offer. So they know they can give back a little bit more. And so those are some of the ways that we're just being transparent about what we're trying to do, who we are, and we're very transparent about what we're not. And, like I said, it's pretty simple. Go to their site, buy a house. Come to our site, buy a house, and get cash back. It's that simple.
Wow. Wow, this is really, really amazing. And I'm glad to hear this from you. And the fact that I think what blew my mind is the fact that Chad actually more like hard in terms of the technical, when it comes to the technical, when it comes to the real estate, being that he has spent years and years and years in it. Bob actually have, when it comes to the tech aspect of it, what to put in, how to actually more like reinvent things to make things right. And I'm just wondering, how was the collaboration how's your journey been in terms of the collaboration in building of this particular team and growing to this particular state where you are? How has the collaboration been, and how did they actually get started?
Well, the first thing is, like I said, it was kind of during the COVID time period where things had slowed down a little bit enough, especially at the beginning. And then our real estate market really went out of control, kind of the second half of the COVID time period. But I thought to myself, hey, listen, if I'm going to take this shot, if I'm going to do this, it's kind of the time to do it. I'm getting older. I'm not going to have forever to do this. So if I'm going to kind of put together, but the thing is when you have an idea, it's the implementation of it that's the tough part. Right? We all have family, friends, acquaintances. Everyone's got a great fucking idea, right? But the reality off of this is very few of them can actually go forward with that idea and implement it, because that's the part where the grind occurs, right? That's where the sleepless nights, the 7 days a week, 18, 20 hours a day, the financial toll that it takes, the emotional toll, all of these things where you have to take it from, hey, I got a great idea sitting in the bar, to actual implementation of that idea going out there. So, that's the time period where I sat there and I said, hey, I want to implement this idea that I have of this marketplace of home buyers and home sellers being able to basically create what's called a client profile, be able to declare what type of home they're looking for, what type of home they're looking to sell, and have real estate agents be able to compete in that marketplace in order to be able to secure their business. So I had looked at a couple sites. And, I'm not a tech guy, right? That's not my world with all of it. My world is the real estate side. I understand the agents. I understand the buyers, sellers. I understand that, intimately, but I don't understand the tech side. And I looked at a couple platforms, and I saw one that, to be honest with you, was like an auction site that was actually out of the UK. And I said, hey, this is kind of what we'll try doing. So we went and I gave that to Rob, and I said, hey, can you do this? And he said, yeah, we can, do something very similar to it. And that's what was built. However, once that was built and we looked at it, it was like, is this really the vehicle that we want? And is this really the way that we're going to get our message out there? And is this really how, our company is going to be able to function? And the answer was no. No, much like many things in life, your first attempt is not your best one. But you learn a lot from it. Like, you learn a ton. So that was our first try. It was like our first challenge of where we sit there, and we had put a year into building this thing. We had put a year into building this platform. And as Rob has told others during, some of our podcasts, is that we were just ready to launch. We were like literally sitting there debating whether we were going to take this to one of the biggest real estate conference conventions down in Las Vegas. And we were getting ready to, we were like, okay, let's get it out there and see what happens. And then it was like this screeching, do you think it's as good as it should be? And then it was like, do you really think it's as good as it should be? And then it was like, no, it's really not as good as it should be. And it was like, okay, do we push forward? Do we quit? Do we say, hey, listen, with limited time, resources, etc., we've done what we could and we call it good? Or do we pull all the way back from it and say, hey, is there the ability to make it better? Is there this ability to be able to take what we've learned and try again? And, there's probably kind of a good 30, 60-day kind of thought process there, sitting there going, hey, do I want to go through all of this again? Do I want to try all of this again? I've already just went through it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't turn out great. It wasn't where it wasn't the message that we wanted. And after about 60 days with all, we came back together again and said, hey, let's take another shot at this. Let's build this with everything that we've learned. And not only do we want to build it with everything that we learned, we had to make a decision. So the first version that we built of this did not have a property search aspect to it. So in order to have a property search aspect, you have to have the data feed. And the data feed is very, very expensive and it's very hard to implement. There's a reason why a lot of real estate sites don't have that, because it's very hard to do and really expensive to do. In fact, in order to get that data feed, it can be anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 a month. Wow. That's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money in a year, but that's a lot of money in a month. And that's a really shitload of money for a startup that's being bootstrapped, right? And we're not spending other people's money. We're spending our money. So every dollar not only has to be spent appropriately, but it has to multiply. It's got to be multiplied like 100 times more than what it can actually get. So we had to sit there and say, hey, is it even possible? And in all reality, at that point, it really wasn't possible. But we're like, hey, we're going to shoot for it. So instead of being kind of like the second or third layer step kind of real estate platform, we wanted to play with the big boys. We said, hey, we want to be able to have a platform where someone can come and do everything. And in order for them to come and do everything, it starts with the information. It starts with having access to all the homes that are out there in all the different states and all the different locations, all the different types of homes that are out there. And we didn't know if we could do it, but we decided we were going to take that shot, and we rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up. We said, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it big, and we're going to see what we can do. And there's a long story that I'm not going to go into with all of it, but we managed to do what very few platforms and startups are able to do, and we were able to institute a nationwide property search into our platform. In all honesty, should we have it? Probably not. I mean, with the resource, the time, and the aspect of who we are, were we punching way above our weight class %? But you have to take that risk, right? You have to do something that you probably shouldn't be able to do to be successful. I say this in business all the time. I said, you need the grind, you need a good plan, but you also got to be a little bit lucky. And in order to be lucky, you have to be out there. You have to be developing relationships. You have to be talking with people so that luck can find you with it. And we did. We got a little bit lucky, but it also came from the grind of a couple years of developing and building and then putting ourselves out there. Yeah. But the final result of it is Swyvl. And Swyvl is a platform that can compete with the big boys. It provides all the information. It provides everything that they have, but with this added aspect of it being focused on a home buyer and home seller and benefiting them in ways that these other platforms don't. So it's something that we're very, very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. So you asked about how's the collaboration going and stuff, and I think one of the things that Chad and I, coming from being small business owners, from being self-starters and having to do everything on our own, one of the things that we've both learned and appreciate in one another is most people, when they want to take a risk, they basically go, okay, is this a 100% yes? Okay, I'm going to do it. For example, if I got 50 grand, and I want to increase that money, I know I can buy a CD. I can buy an 18-month CD, and I can get like 4% back at the end of that term, and that's guaranteed. There's no risk. But the problem is the guys that want to take their 50 grand and maybe turn it into $1 million. I mean, you got to go to the market, and it's much more volatile. You can lose it all, but you could also strike big and make $1 million. So for us, if the answer is not 100% yes, and the answer is clearly not 100% no, anything in between, we look at it as, I am going to do my darndest to make it work until I know that it's 100% no. So when Chad came to me and said, hey, have you ever done an IDX feed? And I said, no, I've never done it. But I had come to him and said, hey, Chad, I think, not that I want to make more work for myself, because I'm already up to here with work. 100% need to add this IDX feed because you know how to do that? I said, I have no idea, but I will find out. And until I find out why we can't add one, I'm going to work with the assumption that we can add one. And so that's kind of how we've run this business. And so like Chad said, maybe we have no business having an IDX feed, a nationwide IDX feed on our site. but we do. And so we'll take it. I mean, you can go on our site right now to swyvl.com and you can punch up that home search and you can find homes all the way across the US. You can find those exact same homes on the other platforms. They don't have anything special. They don't have like a magic unicorn in the back that's generating homes for them. These are homes that are listed and that data is available. We just went out, we grinded, we found a source to get the MLS data, and we built relationships so that we have a broker on record in every state so that we can have MLS listings in every state. And it's pretty wild to me being a startup because I'm looking at all the other startup real estate sites. And like Chad said, they're second or third tier. You can go there to do certain specific things, but to do the entire process from beginning to end, we didn't even talk about a relationship with lenders. You don't have to go get pre-approved and then come to Swyvl. While you're looking at a house and you find a house and you decide, hey, I want to buy this house, part of that process is, are you pre-approved? And if not, we have partner lenders that are members of Swyvl that then also are competing for your business. And they're going to come in and they're going to walk you through the whole process. So that's another thing that real estate agents can trust on our site is our buyers and sellers are motivated and the buyers are pre-approved or they're working with a top-notch lender who's going to be able to get them the money. So that's, Chad has told me I haven't done real estate, but he's told me about deals that have fallen apart because people have gone all the way to the step and then go, oh yeah, our financing fell through. And then the real estate agent just did all of that work for nothing. We don't want that to happen. We want it to be a win-win for everyone.
Wow, this is really, really amazing. I think it just speaks volumes to a great ideas and the fact that not just great idea, the fact that business that can actually more like put through when two business owner actually comes together, put their ideas together, work at it, not just they know it all, no, they figure it out along the way, and they actually more like put all their eggs in one basket towards figuring it out how it works. And the fact that you're able to come out with this amazing platform, which make it easier for buyer and puts the owner to actually more like, make better deals. And this is really, really amazing, I must say. So what opportunity do you think exists today in real estate that weren't available 10 years ago?
The tough part about this is the real estate market is so expensive, right? I mean, we've said this. We've said for the first time in the history of the United States, the average home cannot be purchased by the average salary in the United States. And that's eye-opening, right? Extremely eye-opening with that. However, there's also a ton of access to information that's never been had before. And not only do we now have access to that ton of information, we also have the ability through AI, et cetera, to be able to process that information and to be able to make sense of it. It's one thing to have all this information out there. However, the real power with it is to be able to bring it all together and to be able to then put it in a format that can be understood easily by the general public. And I think that's really where our strength is, and the opportunities that are out there, especially on the AI end of things with us is, and I've used this example with Rob before, is it's one thing for AI for you to give them some directions and, it helps you out a little bit, writes an email, does whatever for you. But the problem with real estate is there's the mental aspect to it, and then there's the emotional aspect to real estate. And our clients and people have a very hard challenge or a very hard problem with being able to quantify their emotional responses to things. So for example, I've had a client who was looking to purchase a house and they said to me, hey, listen, I really want to make sure that whatever house I purchase, it has water on it, whether it has a river running through it, a pond, a lake, whatever the deal is, I want to make sure that I have access to water. So I spent like 6 months looking for a house with access to water. And then when the time came and they finally bought a house, they bought a house that wasn't within like 5-10 miles of water in any way, shape, or form. But what they were having a hard time doing is they were having a hard time quantifying subconsciously or consciously the emotional response that they were having to a house. So we want to be able to, on our end of things with AI, we want to be able to make sure that our AI is able to quantify the emotional aspects that home buyer is exhibiting, but they don't know that they're exhibiting it. So we may be able to determine by the way that they're spending to their search patterns and the way that they're looking, they may be able to be subconsciously looking at homes, for example, that has a Viking range, a Viking gas range in it. And they don't even know that's what they're focusing on. They have no idea that that's what they're focusing on. But the AI is able to identify that's what they're focusing on and then be able to identify homes that have that aspect to it and then be able to put those homes in front of the home buyer, home seller to be able to shorten their search time time, but also be able to put homes that they are really going to emotionally attach with. We have this saying in real estate that, the person has bought the home within the first 15 seconds of walking inside the house. They haven't seen the entire house, but they have that emotional attachment either occurs or doesn't occur within the first 15 seconds. And we have to be able to do that with real estate platforms too. We have to be able to quantify that emotional response, and in a way that the individual themselves can't tell you. They can tell you, hey, I want 3 bedrooms, I want 2.5 baths, and I want 1,500 plus more square feet, and I want a fenced yard for my dog. But they can't tell you the emotional aspects of a house that are really connecting with them. And we want to use the power of AI to be able to do that.
Wow, this is really, really amazing, I must say. Yeah, thanks a whole lot for actually sharing. So Rob, how can my audience learn more about learn about Swyvl, and how can they do business with you guys?
Pretty easy. The website's up and running, so they can head to swyvl.com right now. And that's SWYVVL.com. And you can create a buyer or seller profile for free. Like I said, real estate agents are $199 a month. But what we'll do for your listeners, if they go and they want to sign up right now, we'll give them their first year for free if they're a real estate agent.
Ooh. Well, thanks for this.
Out as we're growing, we want you to grow with us.
Yep.
And like I said, if they want to get a hold of us, they can email Chad at swyvl.com, and I'm simply Rob at swyvl.com. But you can go to the website and you can learn more about the process. We even have a commission refund calculator so that you can take a look at based on what the selling price of a house is. And what somebody bids, if they say 20%, what that's going to look like for you, and get an idea of, what kind of cash you can get back in your pocket. And what's awesome about that is this can be used to help with down payment. It can be used to help with closing costs. Let's say you've already got some money saved up. You've got down payment and closing costs covered. But once you buy a new house, wouldn't it be nice to have a new living room set? And, $15,000 can buy a lot of furniture. Or maybe you're fine with all of that stuff, but you've got a car loan on the truck that you just bought last year. You can help pay off your car loan. I mean, so there's no limit to what you can do. Put it aside for your kids' education if you want. It's a lot of money. And frankly, the way I look at it is it's free money. This is money that currently in the current system is going to pay some fat cat, salary. And I guarantee you at those other platforms, the CEO, the CTO, they don't know who you are.
That's true.
And so if you email and say, hey, I've got a problem with your website, they don't care. They got some minimum wage jockey on the tech support that's going to help you out. And they're going to say, well, sorry to cancel your membership. I hate to see you go. You're going to get an email from me or a phone call from me, and I'm going to say, hey, what didn't work? How can I fix it? And it might mean that, hey, we're going to change Swyvl. We're going to make things right, And so is it for everyone? No. If you're a $1 billion deal guy and you got billionaires lined up to buy houses from you, you probably aren't going to find yourself on Swyvl. But that's not who the majority of real estate agents are. We want to help the little guy who's struggling himself or herself to put food on the table. They want to make sure that they're getting all their bills paid, and they haven't done a deal in 3 months, and they're looking for qualified leads that are quality. Those are the people, the common people, right? More power to the people.
Well, yeah, like Rob said, it's to benefit our buyers and sellers with it. It really is. And the fact is that, their memberships and their profiles are always completely free. There's never a charge for them to be able to use our platform, to be able to look for homes, to be able to get additional exposure for their homes if they're listing them. And like I said, to be able to use, the share by Swyvl function that we have on there, or their instant agent connect function. It will never cost home buyers or home sellers anything. So it allows them to be able to explore, to be able to use the different aspects of our platform, and to be able to benefit from it. But of course, there's no risk or anything for them. That's another huge benefit for them.
Wow, thank you so much, Chad. Thank you so much, Rob. It really been amazing having this conversation. And I think most intriguing about it, especially when Chad actually starts sharing the stories, the fact that what I see the business through is not the certification, it's not the whole lot of other stuff. It was persistence and the willing to actually figure out and to work at it, being that there was no options, there was no quitting, you just have to make it work. And this was really, really amazing. It has been inspiring our conversation. I love how you were using innovation, not just to build business, but to restore family and opportunity in real estate. For our listener, you can learn more about Swyvl and how it's helping people save or earn up 100K per deal by visiting Swyvl.com. Thank you